All right, so let's dig into this crazy case you sent us about Marlene Warren,
Oh, yeah.
the one where she was shot on her doorstep.
By a clown, no less.
Yeah, by a clown. This true crime podcast episode really got me thinking.
It's wild.
It is wild. I mean,
Yeah.
like, picture perfect life, Wellington, Florida,
Mm-hmm.
multiple businesses, loving son Joe, husband Mike,
Yeah.
in the used car business.
I mean,
Oh, yeah, the bigger they are.
the harder they fall.
Right.
And this is a big fall.
What gets me is like how the clown thing plays into it. You know,
Yeah.
it's supposed to be happy and joyful, but
Ugh.
here it's like this symbol of, you know,
A creepy.
yeah, creepy deception, premeditation. Like the killer's mocking us almost.
Yeah, it's like a statement,
Mhm.
like almost theatrical, you know.
Mhm.
And
I
to
know.
make it even crazier, Marlene's son Joe was home at the time,
Oh, God.
recovering from a broken leg.
Can you imagine?
I can't.
A clown walks up, delivers balloon.
One says, "You're the greatest." The other one has Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs on it,
Ugh, it's just
and then shoots your mother.
it's just awful. The
Yeah.
juxtaposition of like, happy balloons
Yeah.
with this horrible act.
Yeah, and it speaks to the planning too.
Oh, absolutely.
This wasn't some heat of the moment thing.
Yeah, this was thought out.
Yeah, calculated.
So the cops start looking at the husband right away.
Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it turns out their marriage wasn't as happy as it seemed.
Not at all. Marlene had even told friends that if something happened to her,
Yeah.
it would be Mike.
Wow.
Yeah.
Talk about foreshadowing.
And don't forget, she owned those businesses.
Oh, right.
Mike would inherit everything.
Yeah, if she died.
And then there's Sheila Keen,
Oh, yeah, Mike's coworker at the car dealership.
the one everyone thought was his mistress.
Pretty much people at the dealership neighbors.
Everyone.
It was an open secret, it seemed like.
Classic love triangle,
We
right?
don't have a movie.
But hold on. Mike says he was at the racetrack.
With friends
With buddies, yeah.
at the time of the murder.
Mm-hmm.
And what about Sheila?
Repossessing cars, she says.
Of course.
He said, she said.
Classic.
But then they find the getaway car
Yeah, the white Chrysler LeBaron.
dumped near the crime scene.
And inside,
What?
orange fibers, like from a clown wig,
Really?
and a brown hair just like Sheila's.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, pretty incriminating.
Didn't they find similar fibers at her apartment?
They did, yeah.
So they're connecting the dots.
Right, but DNA testing wasn't what it is today back then.
Right.
So they couldn't definitively say it was her hair.
But still, it's suspicious.
Yeah, very suspicious car linked to the murder fibers matching the disguise, a hair that could be hers.
Hmm.
Hard to ignore.
So was she off the hook then?
Not so fast.
Okay.
Remember that LeBaron was actually stolen a few weeks before the murder.
Right.
And guess where the trail led?
Where?
Back to Bargain Motors, Mike's dealership.
No way.
Yeah, one of their employees had snatched it from a competitor.
Wow. So the getaway car used in the murder of Mike's wife
Mm-hmm.
was stolen by one of his employees.
Yep.
That's a crazy coincidence.
You can't make this stuff up.
No, you can't. So what happened? Did they arrest the employee?
Well, as they dug deeper into Bargain Motors, they found a lot more than just a stolen car.
Like what?
Racketeering, insurance fraud, you name it.
Whoa. So Mike was dirty.
Oh, yeah. 43 counts of fraud.
43.
Yeah, he went to prison.
Wow. So the husband's behind bars,
Mm-hmm.
but not for murder.
Right?
What about Sheila? Did she disappear?
Vanished. No trace, no forwarding address, nothing.
Like she knew they were coming for her.
It seems that way.
And Marlene's son, Joe,
Left to deal with the trauma.
of seeing his mother murdered,
And the case going cold.
must have been devastating for him.
He went through some dark times, battling addiction and despair.
It's one thing to lose your mother,
Yeah.
but to see her murdered right in front of you.
Unimaginable.
But he pulled through.
He found his way back, and his determination to find his mother's killer only grew stronger.
That's incredible.
It is.
So what happened next?
Well, DNA technology kept advancing, and in this case, time was on their side.
So Sheila might have thought she could outrun her past.
Maybe, but the truth has a way of catching up.
And in this case, it did.
It sure did. What happens next is mind-blowing.
I can't wait to hear it.
We'll get to that after a quick break.
Sounds good. Okay, so Sheila disappears. Mike's in prison, and Joe's trying to rebuild his life while still searching for answers.
Right.
It's 2017 now, almost 30 years after the murder, and DNA technology has come a long way.
Right.
What happens?
So the cold case unit in Palm Beach County, they decide to take another look at the evidence,
Okay.
specifically that brown hair from the LeBaron.
Hmm.
And with the new DNA tech, they're finally able to get a match.
It's Sheila's, isn't it?
It is. They finally have the evidence they need to connect her to the crime scene.
Wow, so the hunt is on. Did they find her, like, hiding out somewhere, living under a fake name?
Well, that's where things get really crazy.
Okay.
They track her down, and she's living in Tennessee,
Okay.
married to Mike Warren.
No way she married him, the guy whose wife she's suspected of murdering.
Yep.
That's insane.
It's something out of a movie.
So they're living this normal life, Mr. and Mrs. Mike Warren, running a burger joint called Purple Cow.
Yep, no less.
The irony.
I know, right? With the whole clown thing.
It's too much.
Sheila was going by. Debbie now dyed her hair blonde, and most people had no idea about her past.
Wow. So they just thought they could erase everything and start over.
Seems like it, but you know how it is. Rumors spread.
Oh, yeah.
And even in a new town, Sheila's past caught up with her.
Really?
Some of the employees at the Purple Cow, they mentioned hearing rumors that Debbie had killed Mike's ex-wife.
Oh, wow.
And get this, she even dressed up as a clown for Halloween one year.
Are you serious? Talk about tempting fate.
I know, right?
So the police finally have their woman, the DNA evidence, a whole new life built on deception.
Mm-hmm.
Do they arrest her?
They do. In 2017, Sheila's arrested near her home in Virginia, charged with first-degree murder.
Wow.
The prosecutors even announced they're going for the death penalty.
But this case has been cold for almost 30 years.
I know.
That's a long time for evidence to get lost or messed up for people to forget things.
It is. It was definitely going to be a tough case to make.
So what happened?
Well, the defense argued that the evidence against Sheila was mostly circumstantial.
Like, what do you mean?
For one, they said the orange fibers could have come from anywhere.
Not just a clown wig.
Exactly.
Okay, but what about the hair? That was a DNA match.
It was, but the defense claimed that even with the DNA, it didn't prove she was the shooter.
I see.
They said the LeBaron was accessible to her at the car dealership.
So her hair could have been there for another reason.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mhm.
I guess, what about Mike, though? Was he ever a suspect?
He always denied any involvement,
Of course.
and they never had enough evidence to charge him.
But it's still weird, right?
Oh, yeah. Marrying the prime suspect in your wife's murder.
It's not a good look.
Not at all.
So what about Joe? He must have been relieved to see Sheila finally facing charges after all these years.
He was, but it was a long wait for justice, and the uncertainty of the trial was tough on him.
Yeah.
He'd been through so much, and
Yeah.
now he had to face the possibility that Sheila might be acquitted.
That she could just walk free.
Yeah, it was a lot to handle.
So did the case go to trial?
There were a few dates set, but it got delayed a bunch of times.
Why?
Arguments over evidence and stuff like that. Then in 2023, something unexpected happened.
What?
A plea deal.
A plea deal? After all this time?
You know.
What were the terms?
Sheila agreed to plead guilty to second-degree murder,
Okay.
and she got a 12-year sentence.
12 years.
With time served, she could be out as early as 2025.
Wait, so the woman who might have dressed up as a clown and murdered Marlene
Yeah.
could be out in a couple of years?
It's possible.
Doesn't seem right.
It's complicated. The prosecution's case had some problems.
Like, what?
Remember that clown sighting file?
The one with tips about other clown sightings around the time of the murder?
Yeah, that file went missing for years and only turned up recently.
Wow.
The defense argued that the missing file could have pointed to other suspects.
And that the fact that it disappeared raised questions about the whole investigation.
Right.
So that's a big problem for the prosecution.
It was, and the delays in the trial didn't help either.
So they were worried Sheila might get acquitted.
Exactly. They decided to take the plea deal to make sure she got convicted.
Even if it meant a shorter sentence.
Right.
That must have been hard for Joe.
He said he needed closure after all these years and couldn't risk Sheila walking free.
So he agreed to the plea deal.
He did.
It's still crazy to think that after more than 30 years, this is how it ends.
I know.
But did Sheila ever admit to killing Marlene? Did she confess?
Well, that's the thing. In court, she technically admitted guilt.
By taking the plea deal.
Right, but through her lawyer, she still says she's innocent.
Wait, so she pleads guilty but says she didn't do it.
It's a legal strategy.
To have it both ways.
Basically, it lets her avoid a longer sentence.
Or even the death penalty.
Right, while still claiming she's not the killer.
Oh, that's so confusing.
It leaves everyone wondering what to believe.
And Mike, what did he say?
He insists on Sheila's innocence, too, even expressed relief that she's getting out soon.
It's like they're playing games with everyone.
Saying one thing in court, another thing to the public.
It's hard to know what to think. And Joe, what about him? After all this waiting, How does he feel about this?
He says he accepts the plea deal.
After 33 years?
Yeah, he said he needed closure.
I can understand that.
The thought of her being acquitted at trial was too much.
Too much to bear.
He just wants to move on.
It makes you think about what justice really means. Is it about the punishment?
Or is it about finding peace?
Even if you never know the whole truth.
I think for Joe, it's about finally being able to close this chapter.
But we still have so many questions.
We do.
Did Sheila act alone? Was Mike involved?
What about that missing file?
We may never know.
It's what makes this case so fascinating.
Yeah, it's a reminder that real life isn't like a TV show.
Right. There are no easy answers.
Just loose ends and unanswered questions.
This deep dive has been a journey.
It has.
Exploring not just the facts of the case, but the emotional toll it took on everyone involved.
The murder, the investigation, the trial, it's all so heavy.
But through it all, Joe's resilience stands out.
He's the heart of this story.
Witnessing his mother's murder, battling addiction, and coming out the other side, determined to find justice.
It's inspiring.
It is a testament to the strength of the human spirit.
The Marlene Warren case may never be fully closed.
True, but the search for justice and the power of resilience are things we can all learn from.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a truly captivating deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.